Welcome to On Tapes, a podcast about the physical medium of VHS tapes. My name is Rowan, and each week my co-host Mark and I will look at three tapes. One that I have chosen, one that he has chosen, and a third novelty tape, which we pick at random. How are you, Mark?
Fine.
More than that, please.
Excited to talk about cinema, Rowan.
What do we have this week?
This week, Rowan, we have Drunken Master starring Jackie Chan, Spike Lee's Crooklyn, and a collection of 4 Scorsese short films.
Where do you want to start?
Drunken Master?
Take it away.
So Drunken Master is a Hong Kong action film starring Jackie Chan as the legendary revolutionary and folk hero Wong Fei Hung in his young days. Basically, your standard plot of a guy who is inexperienced, gets humiliated, and then redeems himself with martial arts.
Mm-hmm.
And is trained by an older master.
Who's drunk.
Who is drunk. Yeah, so Jackie plays Wong Fei Hung, who is called Freddy in the dub for some reason.
Yeah, we should probably mention that right off the bat. We're watching a dubbed tape.
And they all have stupid dubbed names. His mentor is called Bigger So. In this, he's called Samseed.
Yeah.
Don't know why he's called Samseed. So, Wong is a recurring character in martial arts films. It was played by Jet Li in the Once Upon a Time in China series. He's most associated with the actor Quan Tak Hing, who played him in at least 77 films that we know of. Yuen Wu Ping would also direct Quan as Wong Fei Hung in the film Dreadnought, starring Jackie's former classmate Yuen Biao. In Dreadnought, everyone has heard of Wong, and everyone's a bit scared of him, which is in contrast to this film, where he's an idiot who is always running into trouble.
Can I go back to the dub?
Yeah.
Would you rather watch this with subtitles, or were you fine with the dub?
I'm fine with a dub if it's a comedy film.
Right?
Yeah.
Is it because you...
It depends on the film. I saw Dreadnought in a dub, and I really liked that.
But would you say the goofiness of the dub adds to the comedy experience as a whole?
Well, yeah, because the comedy is quite goofy itself.
See, I kind of liked it for this, because for a lot of people in the West, I assume this is how they discovered Jackie Chan.
Yeah.
So we're getting this classic experience of watching the dubbed version, which is how it would have been viewed in the West way back in the 70s, 80s.
Well, you know what
When's this? This is actually a tape from the 90s, but...
Well, you know what Jackie Chan sounds like. Do you think he sounds like Jackie Chan?
No.
No.
But then again, yeah, but back in the day, you've got no reference for it, so...
Yeah.
It's just a guy's voice.
He sounds like a little weenie.
It does.
Jackie in this starts off as a guy who is always causing trouble. And then his father...
A ruffian.
And also sexually harassing people.
Glad you got that in there.
But then he gets recruited by Bigger So, the titular Drunken Master, or is he? Who has a bright red nose to indicate his drunkenness.
Does that happen in real life?
I think so.
Do you know anyone who gets a red nose when they're drunk?
I mean, if you've been drinking for a long time, you've seen what Steve Bannon looks like. What did you think of the film?
I liked it. I don't think I'd ever seen a classic, comedy kung fu film.
Yeah.
I'd only seen, the... Not overly serious, but the ones where they're trying to portray the martial art in...
Your Shaw Brothers type films, like Five Venoms and so on.
Yeah, but I'm trying to express how they portray martial arts in those films. Because it's different to this.
It's quite mystical.
Mystical is what I was going to say, but I feel like it's also like that in this, because this film's all about legend.
Yes.
But I guess they're poking fun at the legend, I would say.
Yeah. Well, this is one of the films that really made the comedy martial arts style break out.
Yeah.
Along with Sneak of the Eagle Shadow, also directed by Yuen Wu Ping.
Should we talk about the trailers?
Probably, yeah, I should talk about the trailers.
So if you've listened to our Bullet in the Head episode, you'll be familiar with the style of trailer that's at the beginning of these old tapes.
Yeah, the Made in Hong Kong label.
Yes. This tape is actually distributed by the same people.
Yeah.
RTM, who did Bullet in the Head.
Yeah. And it begins with Snake and the Eagle Shadow trailer, with music that I feel like is probably not the original music from the film.
And then we get the 5 Venoms
Yes,
as well.
with the classic Shaw Brothers logo and music.
Shawscope. Good.
Yes, it talked about Chang-Chi, the guy who directed a lot of those films. He says, Chang-Chi has promoted talents such as... Then it says, in his new feature, The 5 Venoms, he has all brand new pugilistic stars. And then we get the classic Toadstool is immensely strong quote. You like that one?
It's so good. It's so good.
Toadstool is immensely strong and immune to almost any weapon.
Anyway.
Yeah, then we get a trailer for Moon Warriors, a Sammo Hung film starring Maggie Chung, who everyone, of course, loves from In the Mood for Love. Well, Sammo Hung was one of Jackie's brothers from the Peking Opera School, which is not dissimilar, I think, to Bigger So's school in the sense that he's known for crippling his students.
Right,
And
yeah.
all of these guys grew up in this Peking Opera School learning these martial arts, and they'd wake up at like 6 a.m. and just do martial arts all day in an incredibly brutal fashion.
Discipline, isn't it?
Yeah. But yeah, him and Sammo Hung and Yun Bear were the big breakout trio from that, who you can see in films like Wheels on Meals.
Ah.
And also Sammo Hung has a cameo in the film Around the World in 80 Days, starring Jackie and Steve Coogan.
It's also worth mentioning, because this happened for another tape of ours, the trailers in this are at the end.
Yeah, it says, wait, you'll get more trailers at the end.
Yeah. They put more trailers at the end of this tape.
Which is nice.
Like the Dutch copy of Mikey and Nicky that we watched.
Which I guess assumes that people who are watching this film are probably interested in the trailers rather than just having to sit through them because they're adverts.
You can tell that this company, RTM, I tried to look them up, but I couldn't find much about them.
Yeah, me neither, actually.
Really cared to their audience, because the inside of this tape is just like the Bullet in the Head one has. Inside the box, it's got biographies of all the cast and their filmographies. So they know that the people buying this tape are the type to want to delve completely in.
Yeah. And I guess maybe people would look forward to the new releases, which I gathered from the trailer for Mad Monkey Kung Fu, a new Shaw Brothers film, which came out in 1979.
Well, that's kind of odd to think that they're catering to this knowledgeable audience who are like, oh, we're catering to these people who are hardcore for these martial arts films.
Yeah.
But we're going to trick them into think this is a new film.
That did your thing you liked from the last Bullet in the Head trailers of just seeing the title of the film over and over again.
It did, yeah.
Should we get into the film?
Yes.
So it starts off with Jackie in school, causing a ruckus.
And immediately, I feel like his charisma just jumps out the screen.
Yeah. Well, you really notice him.
Yeah.
He immediately beats up his master.
Good.
For no reason. And then later we see a scene where he's, I think, in the market square or whatever, and he gets beaten up by an old woman before running off and saying, I don't fight women, I'm a man. He's a bit of an insult in this film. But
you're not wrong.
Very insecure about his masculinity. I think that this portrayal of Wong Fei Hung was quite controversial at the time, because all the portrayals of him before that had been very respectful. And then you get this little loser.
Which is always good to buck tradition.
Yeah.
The fight scenes in this, a lot of them are shot in one take.
Yeah.
Emphasising, I feel, the choreography.
Yeah, it's very, very well choreographed.
Yeah, more attention to detail in a cinematic sense about the movements of the characters as opposed to, like, in-camera stuff.
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of the appeal of these films is just watching talented people do things.
Well, that's what they do in the trailers. It's like, here's a trailer, here's some people doing stuff.
Yeah.
If you like it, buy it.
Yuen Woo Ping, who directed this film, did the fight choreography on The Matrix and on Kill Bill.
Yes.
I think it's very obvious that in those films he's not working with talented martial artists.
Really?
Yes. Like Uma Thurman.
And Lawrence Fishburne?
And in this film, he very much is. Did this film remind you of something like, I don't know, Buster Keaton style? In terms of how the action and the comedy are together?
Kind of. But I enjoy that more.
Interesting.
Buster Keaton, the style is more like scampish.
Yeah. But at the same time, I think that he has a similar thing to Jackie where he's constantly getting hurt and seems vulnerable, and some of the humour is in his reaction to things.
Definitely that. Yes,
Yeah.
definitely I can see that.
Or non-reaction.
Yeah, I mean, even just like physical comedy was birthed from that kind of stuff. So all these people who followed in it
Yeah.
are gonna call back to it to some extent.
Well, I thought at one point that the drunken fighting style in this film really works for the comedy.
Is that a thing?
Yeah.
So it was.
It's one of the 8 fighting styles of traditional martial arts in China or something.
Okay.
You see that one scene where Jackie is fighting Bigger So and he goes through all of the different techniques. Like he tries the crane, and he tries the tiger, and he tries the cat
in
or monkey.
real combat, do you actually neck wine beforehand?
I don't think you do
You just act drunk.
Yeah, you just act drunk.
Which makes a lot more sense. They're very literal in this. How power comes from the alcohol.
Yeah, which I think in the sequel to this film, Jackie had become very anti-alcohol, and the whole plot is about how he needs to stop being an alcoholic.
The sober master.
Yes. The style of the fighting, though, it's very unexpected, and
How so?
well, just random in terms of the movements they make, yet weirdly graceful.
Oh, the drunken style, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things that his master says, Sam Seed, is that the first lesson is how to fall, which is kind of the first lesson of physical comedy.
That kind of goes in. Yeah, true. That kind of goes into the whole. I mean, calling back to Buster Keaton stuff, doing something, having the character do something unintentional, but doing it intentionally.
Yeah.
And once you master that, you're golden. Did you like the aspect ratio of this film?
Was it wrong?
No, it was right.
Yes, that's why I was confused.
For the first time in weeks, I feel like the past couple of weeks, we've been getting a run of tapes that are in the wrong aspect ratio.
These people are committed to the work they're showing.
Yes, that's why it was so jarring that it was correct.
No Miramax rubbish here.
I mean, that's what I was saying a few weeks ago with the John Ford ones and the Jerry Lewis one. They just seem, their old films being just put on tape, just like, oh, people will buy this.
Yeah.
But this has a level of care to it, this distribution.
That's what you need. That's what you really need for this sort of thing.
Their future,
It's the criterion of its time.
yeah, they're catering to nerds years from now making a podcast.
Yeah.
We thank you, RTM.
What about some of the other comedy in this film? There's the scene where Jackie rips his trousers and comedy music plays.
There's that, and there is the literal feces sound effects.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The comedy in these Hong Kong films tends to be quite broad. You have to get used to it after a while.
How much of that do you think is for the English dub, and how much would you think was in the original?
I bet it was a lot of the original.
You think?
Yeah.
All that wah-wah
Yeah,
stuff.
I'm willing to bet it was.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I've seen some of these films. There's some weird jokes in them.
Hey, some of them are going to land.
You'd hope so. So, in the plot of the film, he eventually runs away from Bigger So because he finds his training too difficult, and then runs into some criminal guy who beats him up.
Baddie.
Yeah, a bad man. And then he runs off and it's like, oh, maybe I should do training after all. Then he does the training and eventually defeats the criminal guy in the end.
It's a life lesson.
Yeah.
You love to see it in cinema. You love educational cinema. Thanks, Jackie.
Aspirational cinema.
Yeah, maybe one day I'll
Become a kung fu man.
have some sort of skill that isn't doing a podcast.
Well, why don't you spend 18 years of your life being tortured?
Yeah. Speaking of broad jokes, there was some stuff that seemed off in some of the translation stuff. In that there was some text that wasn't translated. In the restaurant at one point when Jackie goes to the table and says he'll pay for the food and obviously doesn't. There's some...
I like how we just call him Jackie. It's just Jackie, isn't it?
We do that all the time for people.
Yeah.
There's one part where I think someone says something and it cuts to like some characters, some text, and it doesn't translate it, and then you get a character's reaction to it, and you're like, what was that? And then it's like, it must be like, if you don't pay, we'll beat you up or something.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to like this guy coming out to then beat him up, and like it seems in on like the text on his like t-shirt or his hat or something, and then Jackie makes a face, and I'm like, what does it say? It doesn't translate it.
I don't know.
It's weird that they put so much effort in and didn't bother to translate that when there is a joke in there, it seems. But I guess you can kind of get the gist of it.
Yeah, I think people just want the fighting.
The fighting and the poop.
Yeah, that's something that I can laugh at.
That's cinema.
It is cinema. I've always said to you, Rowan, cinema is about kicking. That's why Jean-Claude Van Damme's the best actor of all time.
Does it get 2 kicks up, 2 feet up from you?
Sure, why not? Rowan, I was very upset with you about this film. The next one, Crooklyn.
Crooklyn? Why?
Yeah, because I've had to contact the Federation Against Copyright Theft to report you.
Oh no. What did you tell them?
I said that you've been watching this screening film for screening purposes only.
Yeah, so this second film, Spike Lee's Crooklyn from 1994, the copy that I bought online is a sample copy, as is written in big bold text on the back of the tape. There was a message at the start of this film informing the viewer that they were in possession of a sample, which isn't legal, and they weren't. The sample was not allowed to be screened. It was for watching purposes only. I assume it was given to someone to check over,
Yeah, something like that.
either testing the pressing of it, or for like an award screening was the reasons I could think of.
Yeah. Or maybe it's one of those videos they used to show on the TVs in Blockbuster.
That could be it. Yeah.
Well, because all through the film it comes up with this flashing text saying, for screening purposes only.
Yeah.
Just to remind you in case you've accidentally started watching it halfway through. So this is a Spike Lee film from the mid...
No. A Spike Lee joint.
So this is a Spike Lee joint
Good.
from 1996.
Nope.
So this is a Spike Lee joint from 1994.
Yep.
I found it quite similar to Do the Right Thing. It's kind of a slice of life thing from a family living in Brooklyn.
Okay.
In the 70s, though, in this case. Apparently it's semi-autobiographical.
Yeah.
It's your standard slice of life plot where it starts off fairly light and then gets darker as it goes on.
Yeah.
And then the kids grow up before their time.
A lot of Spike Lee's films are almost slices of life. Usually have these situations in his films where he'll get a bunch of people from different kind of point of views together and kind of just let that play out.
Yeah. Like a social experiment.
Yeah. In Get Out on the Bus, he's got everyone going through the march and they've all got different points of views. In The Five Bloods, he's got all the veterans and how they've kind of grown apart over time and developed different views.
In Do the Right Thing, the big thematic push is between your Malcolm X types and your Martin Luther King types.
And in Malcolm X,
It's Malcolm X. And the people who don't like Malcolm X.
but I feel like all of his films kind of hinge on that, and this one has that, but it's a family dynamic, which is kind of different for him. It's mostly from the daughter's perspective, this film.
Yeah, the young kid.
Mm-hmm. But we get enough of the family around her to kind of piece their kind of living situation together.
Yeah. So the first half is like setting up their life and how they sort of live on... they spend a lot of the time on the streets talking to the neighbourhood.
Mm-hmm.
One of whom is played by Spike Lee, who is a bully. I think he's called Snuffy.
He likes to get himself in there.
Yeah. I can't stand films about kids.
I
Especially kids
thought
who
that
are
while I was
up
watching.
to no good.
I think I'm going to say kids who are optimistic.
Start out optimistic in this.
Did you relate to the David Patrick Kelly character?
Yes. I like David Patrick Kelly.
Would you have also yelled at the kids?
I wouldn't have yelled at them, I'd just been irritated and then gone home and not done anything about it. So it starts off like that, just kids hanging about doing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's a big turning point in the middle of the film. Shall we mention that?
Spoilers.
The mother dies.
That's more towards the end of the film.
Yeah, well, she gets cancer.
She gets cancer still, I would say, more towards the end of the film.
Yeah. Well, they end up going to live with their aunt for a bit.
Yes,
who
his
is
daughter
annoying.
does.
Yeah.
In the country.
Yes, and you see this kind of contrast between your traditional black families who live in the south in the country and your urbanized New York families.
There's a Spike Lee showing his different perspectives again. He likes to
Yeah.
do that. How did you feel about the cinematography?
It was good, bright, very beige. But that's the VHS speaking though.
Yeah, this box is like a modern YouTube kids thumbnail because they've just put color on everything.
All colour.
Like the steps have become red, the doors become green, and all the outfits are different colors. Like if you watch if you see any thumbnail for a kids video on YouTube, they always just like do this, add so many vibrant colors, and Spike Lee and Co were ahead of the game with that one.
He's a very colourful film director. The Ernest Dickerson cinematography he'd clearly be influenced by.
Yeah, the DP for this was Arthur Jaffa.
I don't know who that is. Did you like the 70s-ness?
I'll say this. I don't think Spike Lee is usually known for his soundtracks,
No.
but in this it was so soundtrack heavy.
What are you on about? Of course he is. Public Enemy, Do the Right Thing?
But that's just one song.
Alright, carry on.
No.
Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm wrong.
But what I'm saying is, yes, that's like one song that even in the it's diegetic in that,
Yeah.
and it plays towards the kind of plot and themes of the film. Whereas this, it's more just like a typical, almost like sort of like Dazed and Confused, like how the music is put in there to emphasize the time period more than anything.
Yeah. So the audience has like oh yeah, it's that period.
Mm-hmm. And constantly reinforcing that by like, oh look, there's Soul Train on the TV and whatnot.
Yeah, there's a bit where they're watching, they talk about the Partridge Family
Yeah.
and the Brady Bunch, which are two TV shows about 70s families who are very, very white.
Yes, but the kids enjoyed them.
Yeah. One film this kind of reminded me of was Charles Burnett's To Sleep with Anger,
Okay.
which is another 90s film about a black family who are sort of reckoning with themes of, race and family.
Did this film almost feel like a play to you?
Kind of, now you mention it.
I don't know if I've got any basis for that, other than the fact that I think just like New York stoops make me think of plays, because they're like such a set you see in plays.
Kind of just a big canvas in one area.
Yeah, how it all takes place in a house and on the front steps of the house.
Yeah.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
most of it does.
I definitely know what you mean with that.
Apart from that one act when they change the setting and bring it on, and they're in the country now.
What did you think about the part where it starts to go darker?
Do you mean how it was handled?
Yeah. Because to me, that turning point in a lot of these kind of films is usually depicted for the kids' characters as a sort of a loss of innocence moment.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't get that in this film. It seemed more like it was depicted as a kind of common occurrence that poor people, especially poor black people, considering the increased mortality rates,
Mm-hmm.
will go through, and how it causes them to toughen up and emotionally mature quite early,
Yeah.
or at least lose their naivety. How that's very common for people from this background, because the main girl character, Troy, she starts to look after the family more.
Mm-hmm. Becomes the woman of the house.
Yeah, even though she's 9.
Yeah.
And she helps the other kid beat up Spike Lee's bully character.
Yeah. There's almost an
In the
accept.
classic Spike Lee travelator shot.
Yeah. Yeah. She, like the period of mourning after her mother dies, it's shown to be so brief.
Yeah.
Like she goes through it, but immediately she's aware that like I need to go past this and focus on being like a motherly figure to my siblings now.
Yeah, and it wasn't just that that period of time was elided. It was just that it was really short in
Mhm.
real time.
Yeah, because I think there's something they mention in the dialogue to show you how much time has passed since she
Yeah.
passed.
But I thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you think of the scene with RuPaul? What's going on there?
In the shop.
Yeah. One of the kids walks into this corner shop, and RuPaul is just there dancing very sexually.
Yeah.
Kind of felt like just, it's one of those things you see when you're a kid and you really don't really understand what's going on, but it sticks with you.
Maybe that. Yeah. Maybe that could play into the like whole themes of maturity.
Yeah, I definitely
Go on throughout the rest of the film with Troy's character.
Yeah, I definitely think that's something.
Because I think a lot of it is that going on in the background, like the fact that she's sent away and she shares a room with her cousin. I think it is her cousin.
Yeah.
Shares a room with her cousin, who's older than her, and there's a lot of things that she'll say like, "Oh, you don't know about this," and she teaches her, and then obviously she goes back home and is expected to be more mature.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of seeds throughout the film, I think.
Yeah, I think it does develop in quite an interesting way.
Yeah. This film just seems to come from like a place of love,
Yeah.
which you can't really fault too much.
No, I wasn't that crazy about it, but, it's not really my kind of thing, but I can see people would like it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of Spike Lee films I like more than this, but I'm glad I watched this.
Yeah. Crooklyn kind of feels like one of those small films
Mm-hmm.
that you sort of do for yourself.
Coming off the heels of, I think, Malcolm X.
Yeah. Yeah, because Malcolm X is a very big film,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like he wanted to do something more personal, I guess.
Definitely, yeah. Speaking of personal, would you like to move on to these Martin Scorsese shorts?
Sure.
So what are the 4 shorts on this, Mark?
There's What's a Nice Girl Like You Doing in a Place Like This. There's It's Not Just You Money, The Big Shave, and I think the most famous one, Italian American.
Yes. Ranging from 1963 up to 74.
Yeah, so Italian American was the only one made when he was
Anything.
established.
Yeah. Well, you say established. He still hadn't done Taxi Driver yet.
No, he did
So it
Mean
was still
Streets.
just, Mean Streets. He was kind of going off of that hype.
Boxcar Bertha. So this tape was produced by Connoisseur Video. Label for all of you movie buffs out there. Who were some of the names that Connoisseur Video have distributed?
Oh, God. That was the first frame of the tape.
Yeah.
The first section.
There was stuff like Fellini, Coppola,
Mm-hmm.
Bergman, and then you had just some rubbish.
You haven't written it down, have
No.
you? You're trying to call it from memory. I can't remember either. Hey,
Zemeckis.
according to the back of the box, these all show gigantic early talent and an instinctive sense of film. It's good to see the Sunday Times getting behind a small filmmaker like Martin Scorsese.
I don't disagree.
Years after the fact. So the first film, what did you think? Scorsese's introduction to the world.
Very Scorsesean.
How so?
Well, it was about a guy called Algernon, whose friends call him Harry, describing his life in a series of images with voiceover and lots of jump cuts.
It's interesting you mentioned having a name and being called by something else, because we'll get to that later.
Yes.
Yeah,
similar to the montage sequences in a lot of his films.
yeah,
Like in Goodfellas with the voiceover.
yeah, very jumpy. Very, the kind of theme throughout these is very New York
Yeah.
and all of them.
It does that thing. What's that thing you call where the voiceover describes something and then you see the exact same thing happening?
Yes, I don't know.
It's a very recurrent bit that it does.
Yeah,
The only thing I can think to compare it to right now is the bit in Airplane where they say where the shit's just hit the fan, then it cuts to a fan and shit goes at it.
yes, that kind of thing.
That kind of thing.
It's not that long. It's only a few minutes. You can't really get a good sense, but as the Sunday Times said, it shows early promise.
Yeah. Quite similar to the next film.
Yeah, I think partially because they're both black and white.
Yeah.
So it's not just humor, it's similar, but it's maybe 10 minutes longer.
Yeah. Big 8.5 vibes from this.
Especially towards the end.
Yeah. There's a bit in this where a guy describes something his mother says, and then as he says it, we see her and he's speaking. So a guy says something, he's talking about his mother, and he's like, oh, my mother always says this, and then we see her lips moving, but his voice is coming out.
Yeah.
It's like that bit that you get sometimes.
I feel like a lot of short films kind of really, people used to show, look at the editing skills, editing prowess I have.
Yeah. It's one of those kind of student films where they're he's like, I can do film techniques.
I definitely did some of that in my
Yeah.
student film to show that, I'm aware of how to do these things. Look at me implementing them.
You need to establish that before you start breaking the rules.
Yeah, true. Scorsese, noted rule breaker.
Yes. Not a very conventional stylist, I often think.
He does do something quite out there for him with the Big Shave.
Yeah, I thought that was quite an interesting film.
You can tell, I think it's been...
And yet it feels weirdly Italian again.
There's 3 years between It's Not Just You, Murray, and The Big Shave. It's now in colour.
Yeah.
and there's a lot more attention to detail in this.
Yeah.
Whereas the first two are a lot of just cut between different things. This is just one scene played out over the course of 6 minutes.
Yeah, it's more of a concept film, I feel like.
Yes, definitely.
And it feels less like a student film. It feels more like he's trying to shock audiences.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to describe the short?
It's about a guy who goes into the bathroom. There's no sound but the music, non-diegetic music.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of the same little classical piece as it goes on. And he starts shaving. He's got his shaving foam on. He starts shaving his face, and then he starts cutting himself. And then by the end, he's just covered in blood.
Yeah, it starts off as like, oh, he's nicked himself a little bit there, but then as it goes on, you realize that like every stroke with the razor is just gushing blood.
Gross.
Yeah, but anyway, it's just his whole neck is just red.
It's really unpleasant to watch. It feels too real.
Yeah, I feel like his early features kind of embody this short.
Yeah.
Definitely a Taxi Driver.
It definitely has that rawness.
Yeah. Which I guess he must have been into during this period.
The way the editing in this film kind of cuts between all the details.
Yeah, a lot more of just like instead of just like it'll show the tap being turned on and like shows hamping up the razor.
It's all close-ups.
Yeah, just compared to the first two, which are just scenes, I would say.
Yeah, I'd say so too.
And that brings us to Italian American, which for a short is quite long. It's 49 minutes.
Yeah, this is the most professional of the ones, I'd say.
Sure.
Just because it's a documentary.
Mm-hmm. What's it about?
It's about Scorsese interviewing his mom and dad about their lives.
Yes.
Fantastic characters.
It's more or less just, I should put a camera in a room with my parents and watch magic unfold. And that it does.
It takes like him 5 minutes to get his mom to start talking about the pasta sauce. She's very self-conscious at the start.
It's almost like the B plot of this film is the sauce. Every so often they'll be in the middle of a conversation and his mother just get up and be like, oh, I need to check the sauce. Just walk out the room.
You can see why he started getting them for cameos.
Yeah. He's
Good characters.
There's some real acting ability in these two. I love the dynamic that they have. It's a classic old married couple where they just kind of know exactly what buttons to push with each other. Visually, I have them compared to Milhouse's parents because
they do look quite similar,
and especially when we knowing what Martin Scorsese looks like now at his age. It's weird how all three of them. I think it's the big glasses more than anything.
Looking at
like
these two,
Milhouse's family.
You can't be surprised that he's very short-sighted.
Yes, he doesn't actually wear glasses at this point in his life.
No.
In the film, at least.
But he must have known it was coming.
Well, not if he's short-sighted.
Good one. So his parents talk about how they came to America.
Yeah, and they go on to talk about their parents and the lineage of their family. And kind of just get into stories about what life like was in New York at that time. And Martin, I guess I should call him Martin because I say Scorsese, they're all Scorseses.
Yeah.
And Martin prompts them every so often, kind of go in more depth on stories or like ask for clarification. But for the most part, it's just the two of them telling stories and occasionally having a go at each other. You see how he almost comes from a family of tricksters. And most of the stories that they tell involve like pranks. Like his mum will talk about like a prank she pulled, and like later she'll be talking about her father having pulled a prank. It's good stuff.
There's the bit that's quite good when they talk about how they went on holiday to Italy, and there was a kid there who wanted to go with them because he was really poor.
Yeah.
And the dad was like, "No, don't talk to him." And then the mum was like, "Oh, I wanted to take him home with us."
Yeah, and dad was like, I knew he was being serious, and I tried to stop her from encouraging him.
And she was like, "Oh, so did I."
You can tell how comfortable they all are with each other.
Yeah.
Especially in the one will be recalling a story, and the other one will feel the need to not finish the other sentence, but like finish it along with them.
You can tell they've told these stories a lot.
Yeah, and they kind of know the beats of the stories. His father actually mentions how in the olden days that was kind of you had to be a good storyteller because that was the only form of entertainment you really had. You'd sit around and just tell stories, and I think that's something that was definitely passed down to at least their generation.
Yes.
In the ability to recall stories and tell them in a certain way to make them like gripping and entertaining.
Do you think he's trying to make a point about how he's inherited that storytelling skill from his parents?
Did you like the house itself?
That's so 70s.
The blue kitchen decor.
Yeah.
We know that you like to talk about your pre-Giuliani New York, Mark.
All of these films are pre-Giuliani New York. It was a pre-Giuliani New York extravaganza.
Did you enjoy that?
Yeah.
Would you call this the funniest Scorsese film?
Yeah, very funny, this film.
Yeah, I feel like, you just put a camera in a room with these two and they kind of just...
You don't get a character of this caliber in a normal film.
I'm trying to think of possible ways where Scorsese might be tapping into his parents and characters in his other films.
The character of Joe Pesci's mother in Goodfellas reminded me of his mother.
Literally just kind of was like, I'll stick her in there and just let her be herself.
And it works.
Yeah, it really does. She's such a memorable character in that film. In a film full of memorable characters.
Yeah. And of course, at the end of this film, we get the recipe for the sauce.
Yes. He has that at the end of the credits. Anything else?
No. Which was your favourite of the four?
Definitely Italian American, just because I think it was more fleshed out than the others. That's the issue with a lot of short films. They're all just kind of tasters, especially ones that filmmakers may have made at the start of their career. They're kind of just tasters for the rest of their filmography.
Yeah, I agree. The other three were kind of more concept than anything.
Yeah.
Although I think Big Shave was most interesting on how to execute a simple concept in an interesting way. But Italian American was the most actual film.
I would definitely recommend Italian American to people, and the rest are worth a watch if you are interested in Scorsese.
Yeah, definitely. If you're interested in Scorsese, you should watch Italian American. Because there's so much of Scorsese in that.
Yeah,
There's three Scorsese.
I'd like to move on to our tapes for next week.
Sure.
What have you got, Mark?
Well, Ron, it's been quite a few weeks since we did a film by a female director. So I thought that maybe we should get another one in.
Blue Steel.
Yes, it's a Catherine Bigelow film starring Jamie Lee Curtis.
I have heard of this. Although it's a real shame looking at this box. Her name is not on it, and all we get is an Oliver Stone production. Jesus Christ.
Different times.
It really was. I'm definitely looking forward to watching this.
Are people more excited to watch an Oliver Stone film than a Catherine Bigelow film?
What year was this really?
I mean, this film came out in the early 90s. And I imagine the tape came out in...
That's peak Stone though, isn't it? JFK?
Yeah, I suppose so. Well, if Oliver Stone says I should watch it, I guess I should. What have you got for me, Rowan?
What is it, Mark?
It's Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase.
So this is from my personal collection of VHS tapes.
I had the PS1 video game of this. Never finished it, so I don't know how it ends. But you got lots of clips from the film in the game.
Did you?
Yeah.
I must have watched this very tape at least 10 to 20 times as a kid.
I certainly played that game a lot.
Have you ever seen this film?
I think I've seen bits of it.
You should play the game you have.
It's set in like an amusement arcade or something.
It's in a museum. Oh, you'll find out. I'm excited to rewatch this because I probably haven't seen it since I was like a literal child.
I'm a big fan of these series of films, Zombie Island and the Witch one.
The Witch
the
one.
Hicks Girls.
Yes. I very much part of my childhood these old Scooby-Doo VHSs. And I'm excited to watch one of my own tapes.
Me too. Cool. So the hat. The hat.
I'll stay again.
Good God.
Here is the hat.
The hat. I'm now reaching into the hat. I know you like it when I narrate it.
I like your narration.
Here is the hat back. I'm unfolding it.
There's nowhere to put it. Hold on.
I believe it is number 2.
Here you go.
Thank you. Oh, God. Classic Train Journeys Volume 1 Scotland. Unique driver's eye views. Includes Britain's most scenic railway, the West Highland Line. Breathtaking footage of some of the most beautiful railways in the world.
Are you excited?
I love myself some breathtaking VHS quality footage. Some breathtaking VHS quality footage.
Good.
Yeah, there's a Glenfinnan Aqueduct, the Mallaig Line, and trains passing at Strathcarron. A spectacular ride over Britain's most scenic railway from Fort William to Mallaig on board a steam train. The stark contrast between the hustle and bustle of Glasgow and the utter desolation of Rannoch Moor on the West Highland Railway. Just words to me. Don't know what any of that means.
So overall thoughts on this tape?
Oh, whatever. How long is it?
An hour.
Oh, fine.
Overall thoughts for next week, looking at these tapes?
Mixed. Should be alright. Sure, we'll have fun.
We always have fun. Except for last week. We usually have fun.
Luckily, Scotland has very poor rail infrastructure, so they can't really go that far.
Wouldn't that make it a worse tape?
No, because there'd be more lines and it'd go on forever.
Oh, you're talking about length instead of like quality.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gonna leave that in?
Yeah.
Good.
Anyway, we would like to remind you that you can follow the podcast on Twitter at OnTapesPodcast. And you can also email the show at ontapespodcast@gmail.com. Feel free to message us with any questions and inquiries you may have. So, any closing remarks, Mark?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Well, we hope you join us next week. Goodbye.
Goodbye.